evening. I'd like to welcome you to this public hearing of the New York City Rent Guidelines Board. This is the second of 5 public hearings to consider comments concerning proposed rent adjustments for renewal leases for apartments, lofts, hotels, and other housing units subject to the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969 and the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974. These adjustments will affect renewal leases commencing between October 1, 2016 through September 30th, 2017. I will now take roll call. Please respond if you're present. Harvey Epstein.
Present.
Stephen Flax.
Present.
Shayla Garcia.
Present.
Cecilia Hosa.
Present.
Sabio Rahman.
Present.
Helen Schaub.
Present.
Mary Seraphy.
Present.
Scott Walsh.
Present.
And myself, Kathleen Roberts, I'm here. Let the record show that we have a quorum. The next meeting of this board will be a public hearing on June 16th. In all, there will be 3 more public hearings to comment on the proposed guidelines. They will be held on the following dates, times, and locations. Thursday, June 16th, Bronx Museum of Art, 1040 Grand Concourse in the Bronx from 5 to 8 p.m. Monday, June 20th, the Great Hall at Cooper Union, 7 East 7th Street, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesday, June 21st, Oberia D. Dempsey Multi-Service Center Auditorium, 127 West 127th Street in Manhattan, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Directions to these hearings can be found on our website, nycrgb.org, in the About Us section meeting schedule. You can sign up by calling the Rent Guidelines Board offices at 212-669-7480. And as always, there are copies of our meeting schedule here today. The final vote will take place on June 27th, starting at 6:30 p.m. It will be held in the Great Hall at Cooper Union, 77th Street, at the corner of 3rd Avenue in Manhattan. For board members, please note that drafts of both the hotel and apartment explanatory statements will be in your folders at the June 16th public hearing. We request your comments on and/or suggested additions to the statements no later than the morning of June 24th. Revised drafts will be sent to you via email by Wednesday, June 22nd, reflecting additions resulting from the public hearings. If you have any questions, please speak with Andrew. Before we begin our hearing, I would like to read some of the rules and parameters for those who are testifying before the board. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to give his or her testimony. In the event that large numbers of people wish to speak, the chair reserves the right to reduce the allotted speaking time. The clock will beep once when the speaker has 30 seconds left. I will attempt to alternate speakers between tenants and owners, but this may not always be possible. Speakers must confirm their presence with the RGB staff at the registration table located near the entrance of this hall. Speakers will not be called if they have not checked in at the registration table. We have this evening a Spanish interpreter available. When registering to speak, please notify the staff if you would like an interpreter. I will try to call several names in advance. If your name is called, it is advisable that you move to the front of the auditorium so that you can quickly step up when the prior speaker is finished. If you have materials to distribute to the board, you should give them to the RGB staff sitting at the sign-in table near the entrance. And we ask that you please try to stay within your allotted time so that we can get through as many speakers as possible. And this time I'll ask our interpreter to translate the rules, please.
Antes de comenzar la audiencia, quisiera leer algunas de las reglas y parámetros para las personas que van a testificar hoy frente a la Junta. Cada persona tendrá 2 minutos para dar su testimonio. En el evento de que grandes números de personas deseen hablar, la presidenta reserva el derecho de reducir el tiempo asignado a cada persona. El reloj sonará una vez cuando la persona tenga 30 segundos para terminar. La presidenta intentará llamar alternadamente a los participantes y las participantes entre inquilinos y dueños, pero esto puede que no sea posible siempre. Las personas que deseen testificar deberán confirmar su presencia con el personal en la mesa de registración localizada en la entrada. Las personas testificando no serán llamadas a menos de que se hayan registrado o hayan chequeado en la mesa de registración. Cuando vaya a registrarse, por favor notifíquele al personal si está interesado en un intérprete o si necesita un intérprete. La presidenta tratará de llamar varios nombres a la vez. Si su nombre es llamado, se le recomienda que se acerque al frente del auditorio para que pueda rápidamente acercarse al micrófono. Si tiene materiales para distribuirle a la Junta, deberá también entregárselos al personal de RGB a la mesa de la entrada. La Junta también les pide que por favor se mantengan dentro del tiempo asignado para hablar, para que podamos permitir que la mayor cantidad de personas testifiquen.
Thank you. We'll now begin with the presentations. The first speaker will be Dorothy Sarantopoulos. The second speaker will be James Jones. And the third speaker will be Reno Piatanza. Ms. Sarantopoulos, will you step forward, please?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board, and the public. My name is Dorothy Sarantopoulos, and I am speaking on behalf of a family-owned property, residential Class A in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. We have owned it since 1996. It is primarily a single-room occupancy building. Most of the tenants are there a long time, generally over 15 years. We maintain the building in very good condition, perform preventive maintenance, and ensure that repairs that are needed for our tenants are done expeditiously. The mayor has supported affordable housing and supportive housing, and he should support reasonable rent increases under hotel orders for SRO buildings such as ours. These increases are necessary because the operating expenses, maintenance, and repair costs of the buildings increase every year. The last guidelines increase that was approved for hotel orders was through September 2012. We have not had an increase in hotel orders since October 2012. How can an owner maintain their building without any increases for the last 5 years? Higher operating expenses since 2012. We have had several major expenditures since 2012. DEP mandated that we install a backflow prevention device due to new regulations. We already had one backflow device, but now we have to dismantle the existing one and install two such devices. We had to hire an architect, an engineer, and the engineer had to submit plans to DEP for prior approval. This at a cost of over $8,000 in professional fees. Then once the plans for the work were approved, the work had to be done, costing well over $12,000. Taxes, water, and electricity have gone up considerably. Taxes are an average of 5% per year since 2012. In summary, at one time, over 200,000 tenants lived in SRO buildings. Now there's only 20,000 tenants, according to New York Times article on June 5th. We ask that the board approve a reasonable rent increase under hotel orders to provide SRO class buildings such as ours to maintain the building in good condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? No. Thank you very much. Oh, we do have a question for you. If you step back, please.
Yes.
Hi, thank you for testifying.
Yes.
Can we know how many rent-stabilized units you own?
I believe it's 33.
How many
In the
units
building.
are in the building?
There's 32 and the supers, which is,
And the rest are all rent-stabilized?
yes, everyone's rent stable.
And there's no market rate units in the building?
No.
Thank you, very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. James Jones.
Before the fact, O'Grady Plumbing were paid by New York government. Sheckman Negri Porter owner attacked O'Grady Plumbing mechanics transporting plumbing materials into apartment 5. Sheckman Negri Porter owner shouting, Malcolm X, Central Harlem, no right allowed, disingenuous. This information is provided by Mr. Seamus, employed as plumbing mechanic, O'Grady Plumbing Corporation. Also, Marianne O'Grady, daughter of president of the Plumbing Corporation. Their president ordered mechanics to run for their van parked in front of property. Sewage line apartment 5 re-exploded. Sewage raw human waste pipeline re-exploded. O'Grady Plumbing Mechanic, run our job. 5 floors above, plumbing, sewage exploding through the pipe. I thank the unknown judge. I thank 3 unknown contributors. Esther Sheckman crashed the tenant meeting at this location, unannounced. Sheckman, Caucasian white woman, 5 feet 4 inches height, tramped and roamed through tenant assembly, shouting, she owned the building, quote unquote. CEO, Mulberry Associate, Adonis Morphesis, our organization sold the building to Esther Sheckman. Esther Sheckman was confronted by a tenant leader, black woman, church leader. Esther Sheckman sold building the following week to her neighbor Porter, 5 feet 4 inches height, male Negri. I do not recommend or advocate the provocative language, use and spelling of this word. New York government, O'Grady Plumbing Contractors Incorporated were given a contract to repair sewage line, apartment 5 at this location. 30 professional unit. Concurrently, Esther Sheckman Porter owner had been put off the property by New York Corporation Council. $200,000 Corporation Council money absconded with by Esther Sheckman Porter owner.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Reno Piantanza. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Reno Piatanza, and I and my uncle manage 2 small multifamily buildings in Brooklyn, which he has owned for 30-plus years. The city recently passed their annual budget, and what I found interesting was the 4% increase in the budget of New York City. I'll repeat that, 4% increase. The city maintains real estate like we do, has contractors like we do, pays insurance, electricity, and buys materials like we do. Granted, there are differences in our costs, but an inflation rate difference of 5.2% between their number and RGB's number. So keep that increased number in mind, 4%. I asked around to building owners that we know and found one commonality. Not one out of the 30 properties collectively owned had received a survey from the city in the last 2 years. But several members remember filing the survey 2 to 3 years ago, myself included. I asked a few insurance brokers I know, as they do a lot with, as they work with many buildings, does the city ever call to verify insurance increases from the surveys? Yes, they responded. Good. When was the last time they called? The common response, about 2 to 3 years. Maybe my survey independently was not that large, only a few hundred buildings. Or maybe the city sample was too small. I understand the city is getting expensive. I rent a 1-bedroom free market apartment. And you know what my rent increase was this month? 4%. And that, as a property owner, I know it was realistic. Last month, my uncle said we need to paint the common areas of our building. And I know we should, but I told him, why are we going to do that? What's the point of spending hundreds of hours annually maintaining a building we don't make money on? I'm not asking for the world. I just want you to be fair. In the 2000s, when our costs were going up 5, 7, 9% a year, we saw rent increases of 2, 3, and 4%. We don't make a lot of money on these buildings. If you include our time, we take a loss every year. We could sell, buy a savings bond, not do any work, and make the same amount of money. Think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if there are any questions from the board. Any questions? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's see. The next Speakers will be Fabian Bravo and Samantha Bravo, who need the Spanish interpreter, and then Chris Athenaeus, and after that, Clara Perez Joseph.
Para avisarle, vamos a tomar pausas para que yo pueda interpretar y él luego se continúa.
Sí. Buenas tardes tengan todos ustedes.
Good evening.
Mi nombre es Fabián y vengo con el grupo de vecinos ayudando a vecinos. Vivo en el cuadro 30 de la calle 61 en Sunset Park, Brooklyn, Nueva York. Vivimos en el apartamento desde el año 1998 y en el año 2007 la nueva dueña compró el edificio y comenzó con sus tácticas de acoso verbal y de discriminación.
Let me stop you for just a moment, sir, and let's get the interpretation.
Sí.
Microphone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fabian Bravo. I come with the group Neighbors Helping Neighbors. I live at 430 61st Street in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. We live in this apartment since the year 1998, and in 2007, a new owner bought the building and started with her tactics of verbal abuse and intimidation.
Nos enviaba documentos exigiendo pagos que ya habíamos hecho. En su búsqueda de ambición, la dueña pisoteó a mucha gente, sacando a inquilinos del departamento con aumentos y con el acoso de llamadas y visitas constantes en todo momento.
She used to send us documents demanding payments we had already made. In her search, based on ambition, the owner stepped all over a lot of tenants, and many people had already left the building due to illegal increases and threats through phone calls and constant visits without any previous notice.
Vivíamos en un estado de confusión y mucho miedo que nos condujo a una inestabilidad emocional y una inestabilidad económica. Actualmente estamos en un caso de evicción que la dueña nos envió a corte.
We live in a constant state of confusion and fear that led us to economic and emotional instability. Currently, we're in a process of eviction.
Un aumento únicamente beneficia a los dueños de los edificios, quienes a su vez no hacen reparaciones en los departamentos que están en condiciones inadecuadas. Estas condiciones inadecuadas causan enfermedades como asma y el plomo que daña a nuestros hijos.
An increase in rent only benefits the owners of buildings, which in turn do not make the necessary repairs in our apartments, which are in inadequate conditions. These inadequate conditions cause diseases such as asthma and the presence of lead damaging our children.
Debido a que estoy discapacitado, es más difícil pagar los aumentos que hacen cada año. Mis hijos tienen un sueño, ir de vacaciones a Disney, graduarse de la universidad y tener una mejor vida. Tenemos un sueño que tuvo Martin Luther King Jr., en vivir en una vivienda digna, vivir sin discriminación y acoso por parte de los dueños.
Due to my disability, it is more difficult for me to pay the rent increases that happen every year. My children have a dream to go to Disney World for vacation, to graduate university, to have a better life. We have a dream, the same dream that Martin Luther King Jr. had, to live in dignified housing and to live without discrimination and constant abuse from the owners.
Hoy, con la ayuda de nuestros representantes políticos y ustedes como Junta Reguladora de Renta, se pueden cumplir esos sueños. Los aumentos solo benefician a los dueños y a los inquilinos, que es más difícil vivir en Nueva York cada año.
Today, with the help of our representatives, our politicians and representatives, and you, who are the regulatory board, the rent regulatory board, we can see these dreams come true. The rent increases benefit the owners, and it only makes life more difficult for tenants in New York City each year.
Yo deseo una vida para mis hijos y los hijos de mis hijos. Y deseo vivir en Nueva York y que mis vecinos tengan también esa oportunidad como la tienen todos. Gracias por su atención y por tomar en cuenta mi testimonio.
I wish for a better life for my children and for my children's children, and I wish to live it in New York, and I wish the same for my neighbors, for them to have the same opportunity. Thank you for your attention and for taking my testimony into account.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this speaker? Yes, Scott Walsh has a question for you, Mr. Bravo.
Thank you for your testimony. You indicated, two questions about your testimony. You indicated that you had a disability. Are you currently on the DREE program for the city, which sets your rent increases at 0?
No.
Have you applied to that program?
No.
No, I don't know about that program.
Okay, so we're trying to get you some information on that. And can you just tell us, what is the circumstance for eviction? Eviction is a pretty far along in the process, so just explain that a little better.
¿Nos puede decir cuáles son las circunstancias de su evicción? Evicción es usualmente un paso bastante avanzado del proceso, entonces si puede compartir un poco el contexto.
De evicción.
Sí, el caso que tiene.
Sí. La dueña en cada mes nuevo que firmábamos nos hacían nuevos aumentos, pagos que ya habíamos hecho. Ella misma indicaba que debíamos de pagar por cosas, servicios que ella dictaminaba. Nos enviaba hojas indicando que debíamos depósito, renta de depósito, sí. Y cada mes enviaba un nuevo lease. Ella no me quiso poner en el nuevo lease. Me dijo que yo tenía que enviar una prueba que estábamos casados, mi esposa y yo. Se los enviamos a ella y a Housing. Sí.
The owner wanted each time a new lease, and with each new lease there was a new increase, always asking us for payments we had already made. She would ask us to pay for services that she would decide we needed to pay, alternative services aside from rent. She sent us letters saying that we owed months. Each month she would send us a new lease. She didn't want me on the new lease and said that I needed to send proof that me and my wife were actually married.
Sí, debido a eso busqué información con la comunidad, vecinos ayudando vecinos, enviamos documentos a Housing, intercambiando respuestas, comprobantes. Hubo una reducción debido a que ella no hizo reparaciones en la cocina. Ella indicaba que sí las había hecho. Envió documentos indicando la cuenta que ella gastó, cosa que no es verdad. Yo tomé fotos y envié a Housing. Housing aprobó la reducción. La dueña insiste que no. Sí.
Due to all of this, I looked for information with the community, the organization Neighbors Helping Neighbors. We sent documents to Housing Court. There was an exchange in responses, sending evidence. There was a decrease in our rent because of a lack of repair and a damage in the kitchen. She said that she had fixed the kitchen, the problem with the kitchen. And she sent receipts showing the expenses of having fixed, which was completely untrue. And I took pictures and I sent them to the court, and the court approved the rent decrease, and she still held her own that she had done the repairs and would not accept that decrease.
Precisamente hoy en día vino un inspector de la ciudad y tomó nota de todas las condiciones inadecuadas del departamento, piso dañado, las condiciones del edificio sucio, el inspector se impresionó porque vio todas esas condiciones y también porque la dueña y los mismos políticos no han hecho nada con lo que está pasando ahí.
Actually, today there was a city inspector that visited the building and took notes of all the inadequate conditions throughout the building. There are bad floors, the building is dirty. The inspector was impressed, was surprised by the conditions of the building, and was wondering why this is the case in our living situation.
Sí, entonces tenemos una corte el día 27 de este mes para que el veredicto sea a favor de ella o de nosotros. Lo que el juez dictamine es la voluntad de.
On June 27th, we have a court date to hear the verdict, to see if it's in her favor or in our favor. And what the judge decides will be his will.
Thank you, Mr. Bobo. It sounds like you're getting assistance from Neighbors Helping Neighbors. We appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Chris Athenaeus.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Athenaeus. My family and I operate several buildings in Brooklyn, doing much of the work ourselves. I come here today to urge you for a reasonable increase for us small property owners. On the back of a 1% and 0% increase these last 2 years, this board is continuing to send the message that you're disinvesting in affordable housing. It's ironic that in yesterday and today's Daily News, they wrote about the miserable conditions tenants are forced to live in the NYCHA housing. This should be the best housing the city has to offer, since those that are creating the laws and enforcing the laws are the providers of this housing. Yet when I mentioned this to the board last year, the response was, oh, that's because of federal disinvestment in public housing. So am I to believe that this board's actions of the last 2 years and possibly this year is also of the same mindset, disinvestment in the private housing stock as well? Although it may seem as if you're helping tenants by passing a 0 or 1% increase, you're forcing owners like myself to completely stop all preventative maintenance, like lead paint abatement, insulation projects, plumbing upgrades, facade repairs, only to be reacting to crises like the Daily News describes in their articles. Our real estate taxes and assessments are going through the roof, increasing every year. Our repair bills are more frequent because of our aging housing stock, 75 to 100 years old. How can we keep pace with these new mandates passed by the City Council every year if the PIOC doesn't even measure these? If this board listens carefully to the tenant testimony, some of which describes terrible housing conditions, how will a 0% increase help improve those conditions? It's just going to force owners to sell their property, and the conditions will only get worse. With long-term owners like myself, people who are committed to providing good quality housing, we want to continue to be the best providers of affordable housing. But I can tell you, any good owner will eventually be forced to sell their building rather than provide the NYCHA-type housing. Please consider a rent increase to cover our costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if there are any questions from the board. Mr. Athenaeus? Any questions? No. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Clara Perez Joseph?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Clara Perez Joseph. I've been a resident of a rent-stabilized apartment for 37 years, where I raised 3 children, saw them through college, and gave them a stable home. I'm here today to let you know that we as tenants demand a rent rollback. The rents are too high, and this is leading to a destabilization of our communities and the displacement of our families. This is also creating an increase in the homelessness. For too long, we have been overcharged and underserved. This is why we cannot entertain anything less than a rent rollback. I've lost in the past few years a couple of lifetime friends due to displacement. Some seniors don't qualify for additional help while they're barely covering their living expenses, and Social Security benefits have not had a cost of living raise. A rent rollback might alleviate some of these situations. You know, the Declaration of Independence tells us that we have a right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. But how can you pursue happiness when you can't even afford a decent place to live? A basic human right. Okay. And it's really amazing how the lives of thousands and thousands of people rest upon 9 members of a board. That's an awesome responsibility. I would just like to tell you that in the words of Emma Lazarus, a poet inspired by the Statue of Liberty, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempestors to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. We are the huddled masses, but we are not refuse that can be discarded and displaced. And as you take your final vote this month, just a couple of days before Independence Day, I urge you to reflect and take a step forward and not backward, and cast your vote for social justice. Cast your vote for a rent rollback. Thank you.
Yay!
Yeah, this one here.
Okay. The next three speakers will be Pearl Jones, Antoinette Bozeman, and Pearl Gregory. Pearl Jones, please. Good evening, Ms. Jones.
Good evening. I'm a little disturbed at the behavior pattern of some tenants. I own a building in Brooklyn.
Could you speak a little louder and right into the microphone, please?
Is this better?
Much better.
Thank you. I own a 8-family building in Brooklyn, and in 1981, a female tenant, which was referred to me by somebody because she got burned out of her apartment, I rented it to her with 2 children. Between 81 and 88, tenant was constantly late with paying her rent. In October 87, landlord went into the basement of the building and discovered water pouring from apartment 1L into the basement. When I went up to the apartment to see what was happening in the kitchen, her daughter told me that she forgot to put the washing machine hose into the sink. As a result of the water pouring into the basement from the apartment over an extended period of time, it rotted the floor in the kitchen and the beams in the basement. The cost of repair was $1,250. I requested the tenant to remove the washing machine. At that time, her rent was $284.27 per month for a 5-room apartment. In November 1987, tenant requested and received a new stove. As a result of her non-payment of rent and refusal to sign the lease, no increase was ever received for the stove. Tenant was eventually taken to court for non-payment of rent from May 1987, 88, 89, and January and February of 1990 for a total of $11,598.22. While in court, tenant asked my RSC attorney if I could deduct something from the amount owed. Because she was a single woman with 2 children, I instructed my attorney to deduct $2,000, provided the payment was made directly through the court, so that she only had to pay $9,598.22. Her behavior pattern never changed up to now. In November 2005, landlord, while entering the basement, discovered more extensive water damages in the basement ceilings. When landlord went into the apartment, she discovered extensive water damages to the kitchen floor. A hairdressing basin was found into the kitchen, indicating that the tenant was running a hairdressing business in the apartment without my knowledge. Although repairs have constantly been made to the kitchen and bathroom in the apartment, tenant has constantly damaged the same repairs made to the apartment.
Ms. Jones, your time is up. Could you wind it up, please?
Put more violations on the building. I wish something could be done about these behavior pattern of these type of tenants.
Thank you for your testimony. Antoinette Bozeman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Antoinette Bozeman.
Could you speak up and get close to the mic, please?
My name is Antoinette Bozeman, born and raised on the south side of Chicago. I came from a family where people fought for everything and organized. I was told by my mother when I was a kid asking a bunch of questions, why are we here? She said one day when I grew up, I would be able to own my own home, or I'll be able to rent wherever I want to. as long as I was able to pay. I live in Bed-Stuy. I came to New York in '83. I live in Bed-Stuy ever since. I raised 7 kids, sent them to college. They went to the Army and everything. Right now, I'm being told I have to move, but that's not a problem. If you want to sell your property and you want me to move, I have no objection to that. My problem comes in is when I'm looking for an apartment, I'm being told I have to give them a fee. They want to check a background. I have to have a score of 800 credit. I have to have numerous amount of money. But I have Section 8, and they're saying they're not taking Section 8. So my thing was, if this is for the public or for the poor, what happened? You don't want the money? You're discriminating? To me, I'm being told indirectly, you're handing my hat. I'm being handed my hat. I'm being discriminated against. Because if I can walk around there and see that you have my counterparts, they're drug addicts and they got EBT cards and they're living in the same apartments, I got a problem with that. You're telling me you can, and if you do take Section 8, you go $25 more than what it's supposed to be. My daughter told me legally they have to show you the apartment, but they don't have to accept you. So my question is, what happened to the Act of '64? Is it out the window? Is everything out the window? I want to know, has everything been gone? Are we back to 1950? Because if I'm back to 1950, I want to know. Because I can't get up. They said, oh, you can go to the Bronx. Why I have to leave my community? Why is it that everyone in the community has to leave? I know people that lived in the house for 20 years. Even though they're private owners, I understand it. If you're going to live in your own house and you don't want nobody else there, you want to pick out the person, I understand it. But if you're going to open it up for the public, then you cannot say you're not going to take Section 8. You cannot say you're not going to take the poor. That is crazy. So I'm seeing my counterpart living there, and I don't understand that. Please explain that to me, because that's, you being racist. Somebody's been racist. So my thing is, I said, because I've called everybody, let's organize. Let's sue the city and the developers. Sue the city for allowing the developers in, sue the developers because they're not giving us a place to live. So if you don't want to give me a place to live, and you don't think I get enough money, then how about I take some of your money and get a place to live? I'll buy my own house. Because right about now, I am tired. And my friend, it took her 3 years to find a place to live, and she only found that because her son was going with the girl whose mother owns the house, and they happened to be putting her in the senior citizen house. That's how she was able to get the apartment. And it's going crazy. We're being asked to leave our community and go to Bronx, or you can move out of New York, you could do this, you could do that. Of course, we could do a whole lot of things.
Ms. President, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Have you reported this problem to any agency?
Yes, to the Human Rights Agency. I have reported this all over, and I keep getting the same thing. Well, they can do whatever they want with their property. No problem. Do what you want with your property. But I say, let's sue. Let's sue. You don't want to do nothing else, let's sue you. Maybe we can do that. Maybe that'll work. Maybe you understand money. Since you don't understand the basic human rights and they don't understand, they want you to have an 800 credit, then you want to check my background, but that's supposed to be illegal. So you checking my background just to get a rent. You want to see all my people's social security?
Okay, just one moment.
Can you refer her to legal services?
You know what we can do? I'm not sure this is working, but what we can do is talk. I'll go in back and we'll have someone either from my organization, Urban Justice Center, or someone from Legal Aid talk to you in the back. It's illegal to sue based on source of income discrimination, and I think there are ways to have a conversation, but I do think we really appreciate your testimony, and we want people to stay in communities, and it's all about...
But they're asking you for 800 credit score. Nobody got 800.
No one does.
Even people that's rich ain't got 800 credit score. And this is crazy.
Ms. President, we need to hear from a lot of people here, but they're going to help put you in touch with someone who should be able to assist you.
Okay, but I don't want them to just pacify me. I want them to do something.
All right.
You can pacify a person all day long. You can't tell me anything. Like I said, I'm from Chicago. I was raised with nothing but political people who was always fighting and marching. So if you try to tell me some BS, I know it's BS.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Paul Gregory.
If she was in a rent stabilized apartment, they can't have to agree. You see, there's something.
Good afternoon or evening, everyone.
Good afternoon and good evening.
I just heard about this meeting. I did not prepare any speech, but I'm a landlord. And my family are in real estate since the 1950s. And this building also came from
Can you
this
speak
building
into
came
the
down
mic, please?
from our ancestors, whatever. Now, I am trying to keep this building. I have nothing against whoever want to roll back or whatever, but I want to keep my building. And it is disgraceful what's going on. The water rate has gone up, at least for me, 30%. The taxes, 40%. If I do not get increase for rent, what do I do? I have to do repairs. I have to keep the building in order for the tenants to be happy. And where the money is to come from to do these things, if the city and rent stabilization and whoever supposed to take care want to really suck it to us small landlords. We are suffering. And I know a previous landlord spoke of the same thing. My son, who manages the building, was supposed to be here to speak. I have not been managing the building for maybe 12 years. But recently I found out that so many things are happening that are not right. And we need some adjustments. It's not just rent, rolling back rent or no increase and things like that. Small landlords need to live and have their business. What I've realized is that whatever is happening is the city, and I'm blaming the city. They want to give the wealthy developers the right to buy the building from us. They don't want small landlords to have anything. We must sell to the wealthy developers. Then they may knock down the building and put up high rises and charge any amount of money they feel like, $4,000 and $3,000 and $5,000 for a small apartment, because they are big and wealthy, and it is not fair at all. So,
Thank you, Ms. Gregory.
and that's it. For me, it is my desire. I have 5 children and 17 grandchildren. And they are thriving, and I want to keep that building for posterity, and I do not want to sell it to wealthy developers.
Is it right up there? Tumaine Williams? Jamani, sorry.
She's right.
Mr. Williams is a member of the New York City Council.
Thank you. Good afternoon to the board. I want to apologize to my tenant groups. I've been out of commission for a little while. I wasn't well, but I'm here. Thank God, doing much better. I'm going to try to jump back in as soon as possible. I'm also sporting a new do. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about that. So we have a situation where really the big problem is that the city council does not have the power to grapple with these issues the way that we should. And my hope is that at some point, so it's benefited the landlords to always keep all the landlords together without separating them out, but I think it would be fantastic if we can find a way to deal with small building owners different than large building owners, and also deal with landlords who are taking care of their properties and landlords who are not. And so the woman who just came here probably has a different story than so many others. But we are forced, because of the way this law is written, to look at it as a whole. And I guess we have to continue to do that. And for too many times when we looked at it as a whole, it did very much benefit landlords. That's just a fact. And so now that we have a way to benefit tenants, we shouldn't do anything different. But my hope is that the small landlords will join us in the tenant groups, in the tenant advocacy world, to get to Albany and force them to give us home rule so that the city council can grapple with these issues a lot better than the state. With that said, at the beginning of this session, when it came to what I was going to ask for, I was a little wary of asking for a rollback or even another rent freeze, because I wanted to see what the numbers were. But the numbers came out, and so I said for many years, we always jumped to the question of whether we needed a rent increase, as opposed to how much a rent increase should be, as opposed to whether or not we needed one. And so if you look at all the data from the PI Act, there's a negative 1.2%. That we believe some of that may have been overstated by 11%. The costs are even lower than what we believe in the PI Act said. We know that the interest rates are the lowest they've ever been in decades at 3.9%. Landlords and rental income from landlords rose 4.8%, and total income from landlords rose about 4.9%. So all of these data points show us that our property owners are making money. And again, I want people to make money. I have tenants. I don't want people to be in business not to make money. But we have to look at the historic nature of what's going on in this city. And if we look at the numbers, which we should do, we would see that there has to be, at minimum, a rent freeze or a rollback according to what the data is that the Rent Guidelines Board looks at every single year. So my hope is that that will be what it is. It's either a rent freeze or a rent rollback. With that said, we really have to do better. We have to be able to pair out these different property owners. But if we can't do that, we have to make sure tenants get back what they have been losing for many, many years undeservedly. There are many years when landlords asked for huge increases they didn't deserve because oil was going to go up, and it actually never did, and that rent was never given back to the tenants. So I'm going to side with them today, and I think the numbers really show that. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has. Thank you.
Any questions from members of the board? Looks like you're off the hook.
I usually like to own the questions. None? Nothing? Okay, God bless everyone.
Thank you very much. The next three speakers are Alma Callisto, Calsto, Danny Chung, and Amelia Huerta. Yeah, we need the Spanish interpreter for this speaker.
Voy a interpretar lo que va a decir, entonces si puede, gracias, y si puede tomar una pausa.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Alma Calixto, vivo en el apartamento 3B del 512 45 Street de Sunset Park, Brooklyn, por 19 años, y vivo en un apartamento de renta restablecida y vengo con el grupo de vecinos ayudando a vecinos.
Okay, let me ask you to just stop for a moment so the interpreter can give us the interpretation.
Interpretación.
Sí.
Good afternoon. My name is Alma Calixto. I live in apartment 3B at 512 45th Street, Sunset Park, Brooklyn, for 19 years. I live in a rent-stabilized apartment, and I'm here with the group Neighbors Helping Neighbors.
Desde el año 2006 llegó a un nuevo dueño reclamando que se había habilitado el apartamento y cobrando por aumentos de renovación que no hay en mi apartamento. Y en 2 años consecutivos hizo aumentos de 300 en los 2 últimos años. Me llevo a la corte reclamándome que
le debía renta, pero yo no tenía todos mis comprobantes. Aparte de eso, todos los inquilinos sufrimos las faltas de arreglos y tenemos que vivir en condiciones inhumanas, con ratones, cucarachas, arañas, chinches. Aunque nosotros ponemos queja con la ciudad, el estado, el dueño no pone atención. Incluso en otros edificios no tienen gas.
Okay, could you just stop for a moment, please?
Since the year 2016, a new owner has come by demanding that he had rehabilitated the apartment and charging us for increases on renovations that my apartment does not have. In 2 consecutive years, there have been rent increases of $300. For the past 2 years, he has taken me to court demanding that I owed him rent, but I had all of my receipts, all of my pay, the evidence. Aside from all of this, all the tenants suffer from a lack of repairs, and we have to live in inhumane conditions with mice, cockroaches, spiders, and bed bugs. Even though we report and sign complaints with the city and the state, the owner is not paying attention, and even in some buildings, they do not have gas.
Nosotros nos estamos uniendo y peleando juntos por nuestros derechos, pero no queremos que es justo que los dueños lleguen a nuestros vecindarios abusando y queriendo sacarnos y intimidándonos. Yo soy madre soltera y de 2 niños y se hace difícil pagar más aumentos porque no me alcanza su sueldo y no tengo aumentos de salarios y no tengo otra clase de apoyo y tengo que trabajar largas horas y no puedo dedicarles el tiempo junto a mis hijos y muchas veces no puedo.
Could you just stop for a moment so we can get the interpretation, please?
We are coming together and fighting together for our rights because we do not believe that this is fair, that owners come to our neighborhood abusing and wanting to take us out, intimidating us. I am a single mother of 2 children, and it is difficult to pay the rent increases because my salary is not enough. I do not have salary increases. I do not have any other kind of support. I have to work long hours and I cannot dedicate time to my children, and many times I cannot buy them food.
Y no puedo comprarles comida o cosas de la escuela que necesiten. Nunca está saliendo de vacaciones con mis hijos y cuando voy al parque tengo que llevar suficiente dinero porque quieren helados y otras cosas y me da pena decirles que no alcanza el dinero y tengo que pagar la renta y todos los servicios incluyendo gas, teléfono y electricidad.
And many times I cannot buy them food or things for school that they need. I have never gone on vacation with my children. And when I go to the park, I have to bring enough money because they want ice cream and other things. And I feel bad telling them that there's not enough money. And I have to pay rent and all services including gas, telephone, and electricity.
Yo les pido que tomen en consideración mi testimonio y se den cuenta que la mayoría de inquilinos viven al día de cheque y los dueños llegan a sus carros de lujo y tienen negocios y más edificios abusando de los pobres. Mi dueño tiene un real estate que se llama Clarimar, es una corporación. Si usted les preguntan a otros inquilinos, se darán cuenta de todos que viven igual y hacen cosas ilegales. Mis hijos se merecen una vida mejor y la oportunidad de ir a la universidad y tener todo lo básico. Gracias por su atención.
I ask you to take my testimony into consideration and that you realize that the majority of tenants live on a day-to-day paycheck and that owners come with their luxurious cars and they have other businesses and more buildings abusing of the poor. My building owner has a real estate that's called Clarimar, and it's a corporation. If you ask any of the other tenants, you will realize that all of them are living under equal conditions, and that they have done illegal things. My children deserve a better life and an opportunity to go to university and to have all the basics covered. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Is Samantha Bravo here? We need the interpreter, possibly. Do you need the interpreter?
No.
No, okay.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Bravo, and I live in the 430 61st Street, apartment 2C in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. I am part of the group Neighbors Helping Neighbors. I don't think the landlord should increase the rent because my mom now has to work double shifts, and the only day when she doesn't work is Saturday. But sometimes her bosses call her to work on Saturday. My dad doesn't work because he is disabled, but he sometimes goes to court against the landlord. Every time I see the landlord, I get scared and panic, but I manage to remain calm because I see how my parents act brave when they see her. I try to stay calm, but I'm scared that she will start screaming and cursing to my parents again. On November 2013, I was with my dad and my little brother, Nathan, who was 2 at that time. We were eating and watching television when there was pounding at the door. My dad went to see who it is, and that's when I saw the landlord going to the kitchen, my dad following. I heard the landlord scream at my dad, saying, "You're so stupid, F you." My dad was talking to her, and that's when I saw my brother run into our bedroom and cry. My dad asked the landlord to leave, who was still cursing at my dad, even though she had left. My dad called the police and explained to them what happened. It has been 3 years since that event, but I want what is happening now to stop. I want the landlord to stop bothering my parents and the neighbors. I want to go to museums, zoos, aquariums. I want to go to vacation, to go to Disneyland with my parents happy again. I want my mom to work less because every time she works double shifts or extra hours, she has headaches and sleeps early and doesn't play with me or my brother. She is the only one working, taking care of a family of 5. As for my dad, he is always handling papers to provide evidence on how the landlord is bothering us. And that is not all. During the winter, I go take a shower hoping to stay warm and with hot water. Instead, I become colder with cold water. My parents have to boil water so we can take a bath. I've been living in apartment 2C ever since I was born, and my parents have been living there longer. Therefore, I want a rollback of rent just to spend more time with my family and to relax and to be able to have a vacation and a normal life. We need your help. Don't forget the kids.
The next speaker is Danny Chung.
Thank you, young lady.
This thing is too low.
You can just take it out of the...
Oh, okay, I see. Hi, my name is Danny Chung. I'm manager of 6 family apartment building in Brooklyn. I don't have a script in front of me, so I'm not that well prepared. This is my first time here. I'm a manager / owner of a 6 family apartment building in Brooklyn. So basically, my concern is that obviously, if anyone who has ever experienced running a small business, you would know that if you limit the revenue that's coming in to a business, if you limit the revenue coming into a business while the expenses keeps on going up, you end up with net losses or compared to the previous year. So that means last year we had a rent freeze, and if this coming year we have another rent freeze or even a rollback, that means that most of the small business will have a net loss of revenue coming in compared to the prior year. That is just basics of business. And then obviously there's adding inflation and different expenses that keeps on going up, such as building insurance, real estate taxes, water bills. City water bills keeps on going up. I received a letter, I believe it was like going up another 3-4% another year. So it's so expenses keeps on going up, and then also you have to realize that most of the rent stabilized building, they're over 80 years old. 80 years old buildings need to be constantly maintained because everything breaks over time. The roof gonna break. And I've seen even some of the rent stabilized building where the floor joists are not too strong, where they have to hire contractors to support the floor joists. That is the foundation of the structure. So even the foundations are not. Even the foundations need to be maintained. So that means additional costs. So if you look at the revenue, there's no way the small business will be able to survive under that kind of condition. So I believe my time is up.
Yes, thank you. Any questions for?
Can I ask a quick question? You said you have 6-unit building?
Right, correct.
How many of them are rent stabilized?
Currently we have, 2 of them that are rent stabilized, 1 of them rent controlled, 3 of them is free market.
So 50% of your building is free market.
Right.
And then you have 2 rent stabilized and 1 rent control.
Right, correct.
And so in situations, I understand you're concerned about prices going up, that you need the increase in revenue.
Right.
And so you have potentially that in the market rate units. But how about when prices go down, where you have, net savings, like fuel prices went down, because the cost of fuel goes down? How do you reduce tenants' rents? What do you do to ensure that?
Building owners need to. You have to realize that a lot of small building owners, they're not multi-millionaires. Maybe someone who has rent a large building for years and years, and they have accumulated increase over the years and years, then they might have a luxury car on the side. But a lot of the small building owners, they're just a small business. They just have a regular Honda Civic or something.
But the whole thing is the balance against tenants who are just working families. Samantha is a perfect example with her amazing testimony just a minute ago, talking about the struggles that tenants face. So I understand the concern, but don't you think we have to balance that out against homelessness and eviction and preserving families and communities?
True, but I'm not asking for. I'm just asking for a reasonable increase, and I'm not asking for 4% increase, but I'm just asking for reasonable compared to prior year. Prior year was a rent freeze. Rent freeze means that small owners are actually losing money compared to the prior year, right? Because everything goes up.
Well, actually, the 2-year increase last year was 2%, so people signed 2-year leases.
Most stabilized tenants, they only sign for 1 year because they know they're not getting any increase.
You're 2 tenants, you're 2 rent stabilized tenants. Because you're not talking about the million other tenants, because you have 2 rent stabilized tenants.
Right, correct.
Okay.
But I still want to express my point, because there are a lot of small business, small building owners that are not multi-millionaires, just be able to pay the bills.
But if most of the rent stabilized building owners were large corporations that hold hundreds or not thousands of units, who are over-leveraging property throughout the city, which are harassing and evicting tenants, would that change the conversation for you?
Well, that might, but I'm just speaking on my situation.
And so we're here speaking on behalf of the entire city.
Okay, all right. But you have,
Okay.
Sure, but you have to take my voice, my opinion into consideration.
Thank you, Mr.
Right,
Chair.
thanks a lot.